Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you on the internet. If you would like to support this channel, get bonus live streams once a month, be able to read my comics for free online, you can go to patreon.com and become a subscriber. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook of my art, it's a preview of the first 3 issues of my series Morning Star in sketch form. You'd also like to get some work-in-progress animated GIFs, little blog posts delivered to your inbox once a month. You can sign up for my newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comics or free digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up my first graphic novel, a self-contained book called Eye of the Gods. I'm the artist and writer. It's a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can also pick up Volume 1 of my 8-issue series Morning Star. Morning Star tells the story of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. This book has issues 1 through 4 in it. Pick up all of those at Amazon and more at amazon.jeremy.net. And speaking of Morning Star, what we're working on today is the cover for Volume 2, containing the second half of the story, issues 5, 6, 7, and 8. See folks already rolling into the chat. I see Negro Frazetta's there, says what's up. Byron's in the chat. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. All right. So I think, I can't remember if I just posted an image of this online or whether I was actually sketching these in front of you. But what's funny is this image, I didn't start out with this being the cover to the final volume. I was just drawing, and I felt like doing a Morning Star pinup. I just had an idea of Lucifer with a serpent coiled around him. It just looked like a cool image. And I was thinking, you know, I really need to get on putting together that collected edition for the second volume. And I was like, this would make a good cover. So what we've got here in this file is I put a template. This is just a scaled down version of the template for the text that's going to be on the final cover. So I've got the title at the bottom. The first one is called Welcome to Heaven. The title of the bottom was called Abandon All Hope, which is, you know, the quote from Dante, you know, the poet Dante Alighieri at the gates of hell, that I believe it's abandon all hope, ye who enter here. So that, you know, obviously plays a role in Lucifer's fall. And so that the first one was Welcome to Heaven. Originally, the title for the second volume was going to be Welcome to Hell. And this just seemed like a more poetic way to say welcome to hell. You know, and I mean, you know, can't get more poetic than Dante. Let's see, Amaris is in the chat. She says she's working on a zine of sewing projects. Well, you know what? That's great. I hope that it is coming along well, Amaris. Let's see here. All right. So anyway, in this file, I've got the frame for the text. I've got a bunch of research, just reference images up at the top, because I'm going to have Lucifer basically in kind of a beautiful Western plains. I just grabbed a bunch of images online. So I'm not basing it on any one photo. I'm just kind of got them all there for inspiration in terms of the composition. And I've got my original sketch, which I duplicated it because I'm going to slide this around. Oops, got the wrong layer selected. Originally, I thought that I was going to need a lot of space to draw the background for this. But now, as I see about how much Lucifer takes up in terms of the image, I feel like I probably won't need as much background as I thought I was. So this is mainly going to be for me to work out the composition and maybe do a couple of little color studies on the side here. So I don't actually need this little thumbnail that I drew over here. Here's a question. I have never bothered to check whether you can add guides in Procreate. Let's see. Well, there's a gridded drawing guide. I mean, I was wondering if it actually had guides that you could drag on your own and place like you do in Photoshop, which it may well have, but really I just wanted to get a sense of knowing exactly where my border is for where the artwork is going to end. Because basically what I've got sketched out here, this frame, let me switch to my technical pen here. It's my favorite tool for sketching. Oh, it's the eraser. Okay. Turn that opacity down, brush size up. That's no good. I'm just trying to figure out about how much sky I am going to need. The frame that I've got loosely drawn around this is pretty close to about what I'm going to need. Yeah, it's probably about where it's going to be cropped off. So this is just for me to give a sense, because one of the things I'm also thinking about is whether I want to go even closer. Because I do think that the cover reads better with Lucifer. The closer we are, the tighter we are on him as a character, the better the visual read this gives you. If I can get this as close as, say, his waist, like a medium shot, that would be pretty good. But I also don't want the gun going off panel, so I'm gonna duplicate this, turn it off, and now let's see what happens if I just zoom with Lucifer a little bit more. So let's select him, and I'm gonna need to zoom out some more so I can get some control on this. And basically I wanna see how far out I can go and not lose the character, because now he's all the way pushed to the edge of the screen or the panel. Which means that visually, whatever fills the space behind him is going to have to, doesn't have to be super compelling, but it's background. But considering the fact that the main object is taking up a third of the page, and a third of the available area, I guess I just need to decide, do I want him to be that close? Let's do this. I'm going to take this and let's select. Copy all to copy all the layers. Paste. Well, that didn't work at all. Did it in fact paste? There we go. And now I can compare the two side by side. Hey, Amar's in the chat. Hey, how's it going, Amar? I'm working on the cover for volume 2 of Morningstar, the collected edition of the second volume. All right, I think I can turn the guides off here. So right now, I am just trying to make a little bit, before I get into, really, it's just a matter of working out the background. But before I do that, I need to decide, do I want this tighter shot with him pushed all the way to the edge of the screen? Or do I want to be a little bit closer? I think what I can do is have the best of both worlds. I think what I'll do is when I do the final version, I think what I'll do is I'll do this wider shot that I have here, and then I'll go ahead and just bump it up as much as it looks, because I do think that that little extra scale improves it visually. This will have a little bit of space to play around with the figure by being able to blow it up some. Let's see, Amar says, I'm almost done with my cover. I hope to complete it today and then work on the actual book. He says, I'm good, and you? I'm very good. You know, I should do, that's one of the things that I don't think I learned until getting all the way through this series. I think it actually is smarter to do the covers before drawing the series, because I feel like it helps kind of, I guess, set up the moods and themes. It's kind of almost like the same way you would outline a whole series before starting to draw it. Drawing the covers for the whole series before you draw it helps kind of visually set the tone for the whole series. And I think I wish I had done that for Morningstar before I began. And I think for future projects, I'm going to try and do at least cover thumbnails for the whole series, if not like do layouts, maybe even finish the covers. Plus, it's a great way, like I've said too in the past, I may have mentioned, just putting out prints of those images. And if they sell and they resonate with people, it'd be like, oh, this is going to work as a cover because people like the image on its own. Whereas if it doesn't sell, then maybe it tells me I need to rethink that cover. So a little bit of market testing. Pardon me, I'm going to blow my nose a little bit. The allergies, they never cease to plague me. So really, now at this point, it comes down to compositional issues. So I'm definitely going to use the zoomed in version, but I'm going to work on this with the cropped version. I mean, with the zoomed out version. So let me throw up another layer. Oh, I've hit the maximum number of layers. I must be drawing at like a really high resolution here. All right. Well, in that case, let us delete these other layers down here that I'm not using. Take this layer. Let's clear it. We can sketch on there. And I can also, I don't know why I didn't think of that. I can take this reference, block of reference images, and I can just squeeze all these into one layer. My reference is all on one layer. And I've got a little bit more space to work with in case I want to do some more thumbnails, experiment with some stuff, move things around. Gives me a little space to play with. So let's see here. Amar says, once I'm done with this cover, I have to go back and do the cover for the first issue I completed like 3 years ago. Yeah, I see that. That's more my speed. That's what I'm usually doing. Let's see here. Amar says, my mom threw a surprise party yesterday, and her response was, y'all buttholes after we got in the pool. I don't know why she'd be salty about having a surprise party. Let's see. Yeah, Amar says, in terms of cover, he says, that can be marketing tools. He says, that was the plan. He says, if you put things in a folder, I think that may allow you to add more layers. You know what? Putting things, grouping them, I don't think adds more layers. But like I said, just taking the reference, there's no reason for me to have all of those images on their own layer, because I potentially just want to have the reference just kind of sitting up top for me to look at. I've still got the individual images in a folder somewhere on my my iPad, so I can always come back to those if I do need the individual images. So the two things I want to work out. I want to work out the background. I want to experiment with color palettes. So let's start. That's an idea. Let me delete this altogether. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to finish off framing. Whoops, that is too large. Instead of redrawing this whole cover, which is what I was going to do, not redraw it, but just kind of create a thumbnail of this. Instead, I'm just going to take this image, make sure I've got the border on there, and then just duplicate it, scale it down. This way I can come in here and just work out all the elements that I do and don't need. The main thing I'm starting with is establishing where I want my horizon line to be. Some other random stuff in this layer that I don't need. So first question is, where do I want my horizon? So I don't want it dead center. And it looks like we've kind of got a low angle horizon. We're kind of looking up at him. So let's say, I think putting the horizon down here at his knees would be a little too low. So let's say maybe mid-thigh. Which oddly enough, the horizon will be kind of right where the logo will be. Which compositionally, not a bad idea. So let's say that the mountains that I'm looking at for reference here, I'm going to start by just simply blocking out shapes. Let's say we go up, in, and up. Then we go toward Lucifer. So the idea is that the background will, we can go a little smaller and lower it. You know what? I want to undo that just because I want to draw it at a lower opacity, a little bit lighter. Let's draw this. Bring down the opacity, bring the lines down a little bit. Let's see here. Amar asks, did you have any opinions? It's supposed to be used as a tool to promote Lilith, since the next issue is more focused around her journey. By the way, just so you guys know, we're talking about, Amar shared the cover on our Patreon Discord server. So we've got a separate Discord just for people that are Patreon subscribers, where we kind of talk, share art, look at it. I think I would need to go. I'll go back and take a look at it after the live stream. But I think that I really like the direction it's coming. There was nothing that jumped out at me that needed to change in any way. I think that when you started taking the magical energy, the mystical energy that was coming out of her hand, and you started adding the symbols in it, it really started tightening up. Because at first it just seemed like it was kind of like a cloud of stars, and I wasn't sure what it was. It looked cool, but I wasn't sure what it was. And now that it has more clear-cut imagery in it, I think that it's definitely a lot stronger. So I'll take another look after the live stream. But so far, I definitely really like the direction it's going. Let's see here. Amar says it will have a shadow image of the castle and glimpse of her using her powers. Oh, so you're going to add that sort of to the image in terms of adding it kind of like ghosted into the background. I think that might be difficult to pull off, unless you're talking about doing a separate image, like a different one than the one that I saw. The one you have already feels like it's pretty. I don't think it's busy in a negative way, but I think that visually what it has going on is like just enough, and too much might push it, over the top and start making it feel cluttered, unless maybe you have that other image ghosted in the orange bar that runs along the left side of the screen. Oh, yeah, let's see. Yeah, Amar says it's already in the background. He says, okay, I just want to make sure it started out to show how much of a badass she is. Yeah, I definitely think it's working the way you've got it now. But I'll take another look at it, see if I have any other thoughts. But yeah, the thing I mentioned about having images ghosted into that bar, that's something that I've been doing on the individual issues of Morningstar. On the inside cover, there's a bar where I have all the indicia, the copyright information and stuff like that. I've got whatever the image is of the cover. I have that duplicated again, kind of ghosted into the behind the text. My brain is having a little bit of difficulty talking and drawing at the same time for some reason today. Putting in a little bit. I know that Procreate has a really great perspective grid. In fact, I was extremely impressed by it when I first started using it. But for this, I feel like it's fine me just loosely sketching in where my vanishing point and my horizon line is. I don't need it to be a super detailed perspective grid. I mean, who knows? I may come in and tighten up this perspective grid, like draw a proper one when I go from thumbnailing this out to the final image. But for me, this just gives me a baseline to try and figure out, establish where I want, the ground plane, the visual elements that are in this image. Let's see here. So yeah, I do want that horizon line, the lower one. I just need to knock down the opacity. So the two things that I need to decide are, do I want to have, like, where do I put Lucifer's wings? And Do I have flames and smoke in the sky? Because that was one of the other things I was thinking about adding on this. And it's real easy to see how, like I was talking to Amar about, having that balance between interest and having cool stuff versus making the thing feel cluttered. Already with just a figure, a loosely drawn in silhouette of a background, and the fact that there's going to be this text copy around it, even though I haven't put a lot of detail in there, when you consider how much of this is going to be filled up with text, already this image can start feeling a little bit claustrophobic. So when I add in adding in Lucifer's wings, that's already going to be like, it's getting close to that borderline between detail and clutter. But speaking of which, I mean, like these perspective lines, a lot of the background, you're not even going to see that much of, depending on how I do his wings. And I feel like I want to draw them on a separate layer because I'm not definitely going to draw and erase it a ton of times. But I know myself. I know myself. Yeah, erase a little bit of this. I think maybe the wing that's going to be directly his left wing, it's going to be on the right side of the screen. I'm actually going to draw that pretty narrow and not have it take up that much space. And once I have that in, I think I'm just going to lock in some colors. So let's see here. Oh, that's what's bugging me. Let me get rid of some of these perspective lines just so I can draw through a little bit. So right now, I just want to figure out what shape I want the wings to have. They don't necessarily need to be, all of the feathers and such. Say I've got this wing over here. Basically got it looping. And I will tell you that this right here, having the wing going up past the arm and having the snake wrap around, this is going to be a war of tangents. Although, the longer I draw, the better I get at seeing tangents at this stage, at this thumbnail stage, and trying to, knock them out now. Just realizing that it's a matter of making something like the wing hitting the top part of the serpent and the other part of the serpent. Just being conscious of how forms overlap, knowing that as opposed to having the wing cross the leg right where his holster right at the corner of his holster to just have it cross a little bit lower. So again, avoiding a tangent. And I'd made a little note when I first started about having his wings on fire, but that may be a little much. All right, I am going to erase some of the background behind Lucifer to give me room. So I can just sort of play with the placement of this wing. And in fact, I can go ahead and get rid of some of these. Still need to finish Lucifer's foot. But in the long run, if the whole composition works, then I should be able to pull it off with just shifting the foot either forward or backward in space so it lands where I need it to land. Shouldn't be that big a deal. But I can put some little tick marks here so that even though I'm erasing the actual vanishing point horizon line, I can just put little tick marks here to remind me that it's running down this axis of Lucifer's body. You know, and I'll tell you, as I go in here, once I get Lucifer placed, in my mind, I saw it with all of these, you know, with these canyons around him. I may get rid of all of that and just fill it with blue sky and just see how that looks and change the background based on it. All right, let's go back to the wing layer. And now it's just a matter of playing with this shape until it feels right. Let's say I could have it down there where I just sketched it out. I think it feels a little bit more like flowing drapery if I raise it up here. And speaking of which, I can have, that's an idea. Like really let the wings have this flowing shape. I have to draw across the figure here. And this is why I wanted to draw it on a separate layer. So let's say something kind of like that. Let's see here. Let me pop back in and see what's going on in the chat. Negro Frazetta says, lately I've been trying to learn anatomy, learn to add anatomy to my mannequin figures. So I think Loomis's figure drawing, for all it's worth, touches on the topic, but does not go far enough. Well, I'll tell you, I forgot to repost the most recent art book study group, but it's not necessarily about adding anatomy to mannequin figures. It's just practicing drawing mannequin figures. For those who don't know, a mannequin figure is just like, for instance, the Lucifer pose I have right here, the mannequin would just be, you know, a simple form, a simple volume for the pelvis, simple volume for the rib cage, that's too long. Simple volume for the feet. Simple volume for the legs, arm, other arm. So yeah, a mannequin is just like a very simple visual construct. It's taking whatever the figure you're going to draw and transforming it into basically cylinders, cubes, spheres, egg shapes. I use a lot of tapered cylinders for mine. And in fact, for a long time I was using an egg as the rib cage, and I still do, because one of the things about these forms is that, what the rib cage can look egg-shaped from one angle, whereas it can look like a sphere or a box from another angle. And you use whichever form helps tell describe the action that the character is taking. So this would be sort of a mannequin. And Negro Frazetta is talking about adding anatomy to these. And I think there's certainly an art to it, a craft to it, over learning how to do it over time. But I just went through a whole most recent art book study group, and I actually do plan to repost that in the Discord and the Patreon, because I didn't really make a lot of noise that the replay was up, just had a busy week. But in that session, it just gave like a whole page of little simple mannequin figures like this, and I just copied all of the poses. And the reason why I did that is because I think that trying to add too much anatomy too soon can make things difficult. Because what happens is you start getting lumpy, if you're trying to get all of the muscles into this form, you might actually lose that basic shape of the forearm. Let's say you're doing the thighs, you're drawing in all the quadriceps. If it gets really lumpy, you might lose the sense of that basic cylinder. And I was going to say, I think that video might be interesting for you to look at, just because I don't know if you necessarily need to be in a rush to throw too much anatomy into there right away. For me, I'm actually going towards trying to strip out a lot more anatomy. Like, I'm not saying that I'm going as simple as, say, Bruce Timm, where it feels very streamlined and extremely. But the thing is, I am thinking of Bruce Timm as a reference because of how efficient his visual line is. He gives you the anatomy you need to express exactly what he wants to say. He's very specific with it in terms of how much anatomy he puts in, and it's deceptively simple, because to be that specific is one of the hardest things to do as an artist. You know, the fewer lines you have in a drawing, the more each line has to be the right line. And I think Bruce Timm is one of the masters of that. And other people that have done like Warner Brothers animated type work, like Ty Templeton with the Superman Adventures, he's another guy that I would definitely put in that category. Sean Galloway, Cheeks, definitely. Let's see here. My point being is go back to page 32 and 33 of Walt Reed's The Figure, because I think before you try to add in a lot of anatomy, spend a little bit more time just working on doing as much as you can with just those basic cylinders. Because I think getting to the point where you have the proficiency to, instead of drawing a thigh as a cylinder, getting to the point where you're drawing a thigh as a taper. Even just there, I already did it because I've been training myself to, as opposed to doing a perfectly straight cylinder, to do a cylinder that's wider at the top, for instance, wider where it attaches to the pelvis, and narrower. Getting to the habit of doing this with cylinders, I mean, with thighs, with arms, with all the parts of the body, and then even with the, to a certain degree, the forearm and the calf are similar, the lower leg, in that they also get narrower at the bottom, but they get wide, not where they start, but where they connect, they widen out and then get narrow. And just getting good at drawing cylinders that do this, I think that is more useful. Now, again, this is my opinion. It's open to debate here. Some people might say, learn all the anatomy you can. But I am of the opinion that learning how to do this automatically with your figures is more valuable than trying to add a lot of anatomy right away. Because a lot of times this is all you really need to express. And adding too much anatomy can, like I said, the same way that this composition could easily be cluttered once I add in the wings, if I make the sky on fire or something, adding too much anatomy too soon can clutter these concepts. Now, the idea is when you get really good at doing simple mannequins like this, then you start doing stuff where you might, instead of just having a taper like that, you might say, no, this muscle is going to bulge out and then come back down. And you start, this is what you're actually talking about, which is making it so that the cylinder gets the muscle that's up here called the rectus femoris, the large muscle of the quadriceps. And the underside, you've got the hamstrings bulging out. And then you've also got the buttocks coming underneath behind them, you know. When you start tweaking, and like instead of having the calf go smooth just like that, to maybe have it billow out a little bit more and then cut back in. It's more about refining the silhouette, but thinking about what's happening three-dimensionally. So you're not just refining it like, oh, it's just a flat shape. It's about, really, it's a muscle that's sitting on the surface of the back of the tibia, which is the bone, the shin bone. So it's about a muscle sitting on that surface behind the bone. And then another very flat muscle underneath that. So the two muscles that I'm talking about here is the calf muscle, which is the gastrocnemius. I can't spell it. It's got a long, difficult name to spell. I know how to say it, but I can't spell it. And then the soleus is a flat muscle underneath. And the two of these together seem to make up the calf, even though the gastrocnemius is the real calf muscle. But for the most part, they kind of form together that larger shape. And the idea is to subtly refine your silhouettes. So in a long roundabout way, I'm kind of answering your question, which is you want to get really good at drawing cylinders, then get really good at drawing tapered cylinders. Then you want to get really good at, when you learn the anatomy, you don't want to make it obvious. What you want is to just modify the cylinder so that it feels like, oh, this thing, it almost feels like if you took the anatomy and then you took the cylinder and you put them in the microwave for like 30 seconds or a minute, and then they started melting together, that's what you want to do. You don't want to make it like, oh, here's a cylinder and here's a big thing lumped on top of it. You want to meld them together. So maybe try taking that approach. In fact, what I would recommend is if you have a mannequin, you want to add anatomy to it, do those 3 steps. So step 1, sketch a cylinder. Sketch 2, refine the cylinder. Sketch 3, melt anatomy to it. What I would do is I would actually draw the same thing next to each other. So, you draw your basic cylinder and then do the drawing right next to it of the tapered version. Kind of like what I did here, except there'd be a third drawing. So like if I had done completely straight cylinder, and then did tapered cylinder, and then did cylinder with anatomy. Like literally for anything that you're having trouble adding anatomy to, draw the 3 drawings side by side so you can see how you're developing it. And ideally, like you saw, it only took me like, a second to draw in that cylinder. It shouldn't take you that long to draw the first 2 versions, so that by the time you come in and you're adding the anatomy, this may take a few minutes of study. Hell, it may take a lot of time. You may actually have to have an anatomy book with you to make sure you're putting the muscles in the right place. Most of your time should go towards working on the anatomy version, but being able to draw cylinders in multiple angles, multiple configurations connecting with each other. Let's say that this is somebody with their arm raised. And let's say here's their rib cage. Yeah. Head on top here. This isn't a masterpiece in terms of mannequins, but also I didn't spend very long drawing it. So the idea is what you want, it is, to me, far more important to be able to do this that I just did right here, to develop the skill to do that very quickly. And that way, if you need to work out a pose, if you need to do different, if you're studying anatomy, you want to try laying it over the mannequin, you can try like drawing this exact diagram like 2 or 3 times and then do 2 or 3 versions next to it. So this skill that I just did right there, that to me is the goal for learning how to draw from imagination. Also for learning to draw from a model, but learning how to be able to do this very quickly. That's, I think, the big challenge for whether it's making comics or illustration or animation. That's the skill set you want to work on. So let me come back to the chat because I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. Let's see, Amar, we're talking back about Lilith. That's the character that's on the cover of his new comic. In fact, you know what, Amar, when you have that ready to put out, maybe we'll have you back on for another episode. Just hang out and talk about it and share. We'll touch on it off base, but like I said, you're more than welcome to come on another stream. I haven't had any guests on in a good long while, so. But yeah, we're talking about his character Lilith. He says she's an omniversal character that's almost 14 billion years old. She's the original. She's the original and master mage. She can travel through time, space, and different dimensions. So she can easily cross paths with your version of Samuel. That is pretty dope. That'd be cool. Let's see. Negro Frazetta says Watts is teaching a course on it this term. Oh, we're going back to talking about converting or adding anatomy to mannequins. He says, Watts is teaching a course on it this term, but I'm thinking of saving $250 and study a $12 book I already own, Morpho, by Michelle Loriara or Laura Sella. I have heard you shared the Morpho book with me. I don't own it, but it looks really cool. Um, I honestly, I am definitely a fan of using the resources you already have. You know, that's the whole point of the art book study group is, you know, instead of buying more and more art books, just sit down and study the books that you have. I mean, I definitely, you know, I think that the Watts courses are fantastic. I haven't taken any, but I have a high regard of respect for Jeff Watts and his students and his instructors. I've seen the amazing work that they put out. I think that it's awesome. I've wanted to take some. Um, you know what? Here's the thing. If Watts has a course on it, odds are they're not going to just never teach the course again. So you can always come back and take the course later. It may be something where I don't know whether it's one of those where the teaching is live or whether they record all of it so that in later years, you don't have to teach it all over again. You can just watch the lessons. So if it's more like a Proco class where you can just sign up anytime and get it, then you can always come back to it. But I think going into the Morpho book, if you're going to study it, have a clear goal in mind of what it is you want to get out of that book. And if that is at learning how to meld anatomy with mannequin shapes, mannequin forms, you know, take some time and make sure that that book has what it is you're looking for. I know you're sick of hearing me going on and on about Walt Reed, but the more I study from it, the more I feel like for the longest time, Andrew Loomis has been my my go-to book on overall craft of drawing. And it does have stuff on perspective that Walt Reed doesn't have. But the longer I study Walt Reed, the figure, the more that book is becoming my favorite book on drawing the figure. Hence it being called The Figure. It just feels like it boils down the essence of what we're trying to get at. And that's hard to come by. You know, there's a lot of information. When it comes to anatomy, it's really easy to get overwhelmed. Like you said, learning how to simplify the figure. That's hard. Learning how to get to learning how to add anatomy to a simple form. These things are all challenging. And I feel like the more I look at Walt Reed, the more I realize he's giving you just what you need. It's deceptively simple, but the things that he's trying to show in there are like the very basic things in drawing. I think a lot of people want to rush past those fundamentals. And I, as somebody who's been drawing for going on like 4 decades now, if you include me drawing as a kid, but you know, even in college, you know, I find that I did not master my fundamentals in my 20s, and I didn't even master them in my 30s. But now, being older, I am seeing how much I still need to go back and rework those fundamentals. And all I can say is those things that seem like, oh, I want to get on to learning anatomy and I want to move on to other stuff, like adding all these other things, just being able to draw great mannequin forms and breathe life and gesture into them, it's so important. And it's something that so many people rush past, want to get to the sexy stuff. Kind of like, I think, I can't remember if it was Art Book Study Group or whether it was one of these live streams where we were talking about perspective. And I said that perspective is not sexy. And I got a big laugh because perspective is not sexy. And to a certain degree, drawing mannequin forms is not sexy. You know, it's not doing a cool splash page or, you know, or drawing like a image of a character with like rippling muscles and all kinds of anatomy. That stuff's not sexy, but that's the stuff that makes for good illustration skills. Whether you're going into animation, comics, what have you. That is your sermon for today. Let's see here. I fell a little bit behind in the chat as I was sitting here sketching and rambling. I see Gaming Artist is in the chat. Hi, Gaming Artist. Thanks for dropping in. Let's see here. Byron also says Tim and Toth are masters of simplified anatomy. Yeah, Alex Toth, I will tell you. I think every once in a while it comes up in conversation about some of the cartoon kayfabe videos that Ed Piskor and Jim Rugg do, based solely on their review of the book. I went out and I bought the Alex Toth Bravo for Adventure Artist Edition. So I have a few other Alex Toth books, but this thing, like, you can see how much bigger than my head this book is. So it's, you know, bigger. I guess it's 12 by 18 because it's bigger than the 11 by 17 artboard. And it's got like full-sized, well, let me get a page that has like art on both pages. But it's got like full-sized Alex Toth comic pages. Now, I still haven't had time to sit down and go over this book with a fine-tooth comb, but I mean, yeah, Alex Toth, just the fact that you mentioned him, I love me some Alex Toth. Now, I'm not an Alex Toth historian. I know that there's 3 books that IDW put out. Genius, they're the Genius series. All 3 of them have Genius in the title. You know, one covers his comics work, one covers his animation work. I'm not sure what the last one covers. But, I mean, I think I just didn't get them because I'm running out of we've had this conversation. I'm running out of space for books, even books that I desperately want. But this was one I could not resist because it literally is, oh, I could just pour over Alex Toth's work and learn directly from his pages. So yeah, along with Bruce Timm, Toth definitely deserves some love for simplified anatomy. And I don't know if you guys know the Cartoon Kayfabe channel. They have a thing that they joke about. They call it the kayfabe effect, which is when they mention a rare comic or an art book that's like an artistic gem, then immediately people run out and start buying it, and it becomes either ridiculously expensive or you just can't find copies. And I will tell you, the kayfabe effect is real. So if you ever see something on their video and it looks dope and you want to get it, if you find it online and it's like, oh, this is $50 or $60, you know, it's kind of pricey for an art book, or it's a $100 book. If it's something that you really want, I would say get it, because within a couple of weeks of them doing that video, the thing will be like double the price. And they're not trying to jack the price up. They're just trying to share books that they love, kind of like me sharing that book. They're just sharing stuff that they love. They think that people can learn from. But very quickly, most of the stuff they talk about becomes ridiculously expensive. So let's see here. Nico Frazetta says, I feel like I'm spending way too much money taking art classes for the speed I'm growing. That has been my motivation behind going through my bookshelf and seeing what I can learn. He said, I cut up my Walt Reed book and put it into a binder to make it easier to study. I mean, I guess that's one move. I honestly, I would have probably just photocopied pages as I needed, or maybe just taken a photo of a page and printed it out as opposed to cutting up the actual book, because I kind of like having having all the stuff in one place as opposed to having it in a binder. Like, yeah, it doesn't lay flat perfectly, but you know what? What's done is done. If it makes it easier for you to get in there and digest the material and the knowledge, do what works best. I mean, art books are there to be used. So if cutting it up makes it easier for you to access the information, then, you know, by all means, go for it. But you know what? I will tell you, again, things you are sick of hearing me say. When you feel safe health-wise and you have the time for it, go to an in-person figure drawing class. I have to tell you that of all of the things I have done in my life that have helped me progress as an artist, to really help me where I could quickly see, not quickly, but I could see the visual improvement from month to month in terms of my craft, it was getting into a room with a live model and preferably an instructor. I like instructed classes, even though, workshops, you can learn a lot from uninstructed workshops as well. But when I was, getting into figure drawing, it definitely helped having a great instructor. Point being that while there are places you can watch classes online, being able to get in front of a live model on a weekly basis, that's the other thing. It's not like just going to a figure drawing class. If you go to a figure drawing class and you don't go again for like a month or two, then it's not going to help you that much. But if you spend like 10 weeks, 12 weeks going and drawing for a figure drawing class, drawing for a figure drawing model, a life model, like 3 hours a week, you go for a session every week and it's like a 2-3 hour session, you will see that it will transform the way you understand the human figure. That is probably one of the biggest bits of advice that I would give to you, is definitely at some point you got to start doing that. Because I can see you getting, not that I see it happening, but I can see a world in which you get frustrated that you're not improving at the speed that you want. And it's because there is a very specific activity that you're not doing. And it may just be that you haven't found a place that's close to you. It might be that your work schedule makes it really hard to find a workshop that you can go to regularly. What I would say is don't give up. Keep looking. Try to find one that fits your schedule. Because it's so important. It's so very, very important. Let's see here. Amar says, that is my whole point of doing animation, is to increase my proficiency and speed doing comics. Well, that's very true. I think most of the artists I know who are really, really fast are people who end up working in animation. And I think you would be hard pressed. Like if you were to actually say, well, who are faster, animators or comic creators? It might be that animators are faster, and I think that's why, when animators do decide to make a comic, they actually are able to keep up with the deadlines and do stuff on a regular basis because they're used to the fast pace that that working in animation has. I mean, for me personally, one of the biggest problems I've always had is that I am too slow. I'm not proud of it, and I'm not saying you should be slow. I'm just saying I'm being vulnerable here. I'm admitting one of my huge flaws and weaknesses is I'm just not that fast an artist. And I think in order to do comics full-time, you have to be very, very fast. No, I don't think. That's just a fact. I mean, there are some artists who maybe are not that fast in comics, but I mean, there's only one Travis Ture, There's only one. I mean, I'm trying to think of other artists off the top of my head who are great and people will wait for even if they're not particularly fast. I mean, I want to say Barry Windsor Smith, but I also don't know if Barry Windsor Smith is just, it may not even be that he's slow. It just might be that he's spending his time doing other stuff because he doesn't do very many interviews. I don't hear a lot of conversation about what he's doing other than like, the recent book that he just published. But he is one of those artists who, like, it doesn't matter how long he takes, he's worth the wait. I will tell you one guy that I can think of is Mark Schultz, because I got a chance to pick up a copy of one of his various drawings books directly from him and get it signed at a San Diego Comic-Con one year. I think it was San Diego Comic-Con. It might have been WonderCon. Point being is I was able to get a copy of his book. He's got this great collection of his drawings, both for comics and for personal illustrations. And it's a series called Various Drawings, which has eventually been collected into one big fat volume. But, I told him, he's one of the guys that I look at, and just his work is incredibly inspiring. And he joked, he said, I'm so slow. Don't be inspired by me. Go be inspired by somebody faster. But I told him, and I still mean it from the bottom of my heart, his work is worth the wait. When you look at his work, it is comics done with the care of what the illustrations of the old masters. You know, it's beautifully rendered. Well, if anything, it definitely is more of the golden age of illustration. Like his work, I think, has a lot more Howard Pyle and Harvey Dunn in it than it does Michelangelo. But the point is that it's work that is beautiful and thoughtful and well thought out. And my going into all of this rant is that there are artists who are slow, and it seems weird that I am gravitating towards those people in terms of influence, while at the same time telling you, hey, you know, most people, like, I'm slower than I should be in order to be a full-time illustrator. Just why I make my money doing graphic design work. Let's see here. Oh, Amar says, this is for Negro Fazetta. He says, I would just pick a direction or a topic and put all my energy into that. What inspires you and gives you the most happiness? Happiness, once you determine, then will help you grow faster because you will hit, because you will be more steadfast when you hit failures. It's a very, very good point. Throw that up there. Throwing that up there. Amar, kicking the knowledge. He said, once I can get to the point of doing a comic bi-monthly and or monthly, I will know then I should be doing it for a living, for my own work. So once I think I can have my stories already written and know the universe better, I will be able to complete the comic books faster. Yeah, you know what's funny is I've mentioned this, shaming myself on the Patreon posts, that one of my goals for this year, for 2021, was to write for a half hour every day, and I have not been doing that at all. And I keep bringing it up because I'm going to keep bringing it up until I start doing it, because I need to do it in order to get my next book written and the book after that written, and I have not been diligent about it. So I'm not letting myself off the hook here. I'm going to keep flagellating myself. Like, you know, generally, I try to be, like I always tell you guys, don't beat yourself up. Just do what you can. Keep working. Keep, you know, trying to improve. This whole thing of me writing every day in order to get better at writing, that's a non-starter. I have to do that, and I am going to keep, you know, crowing about it until you guys say, "Shut up, we're not listening to you anymore," or until I just start doing it. And hopefully, I'll start doing it sooner rather than later. Well, you know what? And that's the other thing. I keep talking about it like it's just going to happen. And it's not just going to happen. I'm going to have to decide to do it. There is no hopefully. I just need to commit. So maybe that'll be the thing that I do this week, as I really get into the writing part. By the way, we're at a little over an hour here. So I'm going to wrap up where I'm at with this drawing, take a quick look at the last few comments in the chat, and then we're gonna call it a day. So if anybody has any last things they want me to mention or anything to discuss, you know, throw it out now, because we're in the last few minutes here. Let's see here. Negro Facetta says to Amar, I've been thinking about fine art direction that I've been traveling. I'm starting to question why spending my time and money learning the Riley abstraction. You know, and it's funny because on our own, when we were doing our art book study group on Patreon, you know, we talked about that, and or maybe it was just conversations we had on the Discord channel. But the fact that I see the results, I see why people like the Riley method, but I've tried it. Well, I haven't really tried it. You know, that would be disingenuous. I haven't given it a fair shot. But from sketching and messing around with it, it just does not feel like it is for me. So, I mean, I can understand getting fed up with the Riley method, because, you know, anytime you're doing something, if it doesn't feel like it's pushing you in the direction you want, you're going to question, say, well, why am I doing this? And all I can say is that in terms of process and flow and what feels like it works for me, the Riley method does not feel like it's really something that, for me personally, for those who don't know, the Riley method is just a matter of using geometric abstractions on top of basic volumes to help you block in the masses when you're drawing figures, portraits, what have you. But in looking at the different geometric abstractions that I've seen, it just does not feel, for me, it just didn't feel that natural. And that is not to say that one should not use it. It just, it just doesn't work for me. Let's see. Igor Frazetta says, I've been watching the SVS Learn community meeting, and those artists are just having fun, not worrying about the old masters. Well, I think that there's a lot of value in studying the old masters. It's just when we're talking about the Riley method, I don't think that the Riley method is something that is from the old masters. And I do definitely agree that having fun isn't the only thing, but it's like Amar said, you will stick through the hardships if you're enjoying the process. Like for me, I spent a lot of time working on my my figure drawings, like going over my drawings from class and just correcting mistakes, analyzing them. But it's because I get a lot of peace out of doing it. It's genuinely relaxing and it's intellectually stimulating for me. If I was doing it and I did not enjoy it, it would be hell. And I can see for somebody who doesn't really care about that stuff, I can see them being really frustrated and not wanting to do it. I know that that's not necessarily that's not, the point is I would separate studying the work of the old masters from the Riley method, because I don't think that they're necessarily one and the same. I can see people also getting tired of just studying the old masters in terms of the fundamentals. Like the Walt Reed stuff, to me, is fun, which is why I study it. And I feel like Walt Reed is getting into, both Walt Reed and Andrew Loomis, I think that they are pulling a lot from the old masters intentionally, because they want to share the knowledge that the old masters had. So I think you kind of have to have a mix of everything. You have to have a mix of being passionate and working in a process that you find fun. You also have to be, whatever that process is, it should be something that's increasing your knowledge of draftsmanship, increasing your skill set. Because you can just say, well, I'm just going to do what's fun, and maybe not learn anything. And while there are artists who are not traditional, old master style draftsmen, like a lot of children's book illustrators, they could draw their ass off, but instead they're choosing to do more of explorations of line and color. And it might have a lot more in common with impressionistic work and expressionistic work than it does the draftsmanship of the old masters. And that's a valid direction to go if that's what interests you. But it's like Amar said, you have to know what you want and then be interested in doing what it takes to get there. Now you, by your screen name, you picked Negro Frazetta because you love Frank Frazetta. The question is, are you interested in doing the things that Frazetta did to get the effects that he has? Now that, if you want to do what Frazetta does, that means studying the old masters. The whole thing of Frazetta drawing all of a Bridgman book, we've talked about that multiple times. We've discussed it. Have you at any point sat down and drawn a Bridgman book from cover to cover? Because I know that's something that you've mentioned wanting to try that. We were doing Bridgman for a while in the art book study group. I think, ask yourself when you're doing your studies, what topic is the most interesting and engaging to you? Because for me, studying the process of the old masters, studying the volume and the structure, like, it's not that anatomy doesn't matter, but for me, anatomy is kind of like, it's a backseat to me trying to get to the essence of the fundamentals, those simple, mannequin forms that I was drawing early on. That for me is the most interesting thing. Because I feel like if you get those, well, you don't need a whole lot of anatomy. So ask yourself, pay attention to what you genuinely enjoy when you're working and when you're studying, and then lean into studying the things that really excite you and engage you. So I think on that note, I'm probably going to wrap it up here. Let's take a look at the last couple of comments. Let's see. Yeah, Amar chimed in, and he said, this year I'm using a random name generator, and I have almost 200 styles in this list. I hope to get through all of them, all if not most of them this year. This is my moniker, Monsan, or Man of No Art Style Nomad. I plan to do all these styles and see what I learn along the way. That's a great thing. It's simply just have a massive, source of inspiration and then just work through it. You're self-educate. You're an autodidact. You're going through and just digging through art history by looking at all these different styles. This is, that way I get a piece of art history from it and a piece of art. It says, I also think as an artist, I don't know of any artist that's tried every art style. He said, in 5 years, I can have a collection that shows all the different styles. That will just prove the myth that you need to have style. And Igor Frazetta says, I mean, those artists are having fun with colors and inks without comparing themselves to the old masters. Well, you don't have to compare yourself to the old masters. For me, it's not comparison in the sense of, am I good as the old masters? It's analyzing their techniques. Because I'm always going to fall short of the old masters. I just am. There's nobody who draws better than the old masters. There are people who may come close contemporarily, but no one's better, because they mastered it. That's why they're the masters. If you don't enjoy, so what I'm saying is more about the process, the educational process of improving your craft. If you don't enjoy the process that the old masters have, the way that they work, then maybe there are other styles you should look at. But if doing what Frazetta does is if you want to draw like Frazetta, the old masters are pretty much the way to get there, studying them. So it's up to you. And it doesn't mean that you have to stick with wanting to be like Frazetta. You could say, you know what, I want to be like Manet or Egon Schiele. Hell, maybe you should start watching some documentaries on just different, art history documentaries, or looking at documentaries on illustration, or just looking at art books on illustration, and decide if there's a different style that interests you more. I'm not saying you need to give up on Frazetta, but maybe you can, you know what? Life is short. Have fun. If doing all this stuff isn't for you, but you like Frazetta, then just make what your version of Frazetta is. Like, for instance, I think if you look at somebody like Kevin Eastman to me, he's very cartoony and influenced by underground comics, but his barbarian warrior type imagery that's both in the Ninja Turtles and some of the fantastical work that he's done, that stuff feels like there's some Frazetta in there too. So you don't necessarily have to be inspired by Frazetta and, still draw like the old masters or compare yourself to the old masters. There's some leeway there to find something that does inspire you. But you have to, part of that is doing some exploration. But for now, you know what? Let me put it this way. You don't need permission to go and do what you actually enjoy. You're a human being who has the rights to pick. You don't have to do what any artist says. You don't have to follow my advice. You don't have to follow Amar's advice. You can just follow what you want. Does that mean that you will get the results that that you want? Maybe no, maybe yes. Maybe you'll get there on your own. Maybe you'll find a different path and you realize I don't need to draw in the way that I thought I did. If it's just a matter of you wanting to play and have fun with color and ink, do that for a while. See what happens. Do it for a few months. Make some finished pieces. You know? See, Amar says your passion of art is more important, and eventually to be technically proficient to tell a story. So, they said he did that. Oh, the Bridgman thing. In terms of not Bridgman, the Frazetta thing. So in terms of Frazetta copying the George Bridgman book, yeah, he says they said that he did that in one day, which is insane, but it showed how passionate and intense he was. And Negro Frazetta says, I need to leverage myself with a threat to force myself to draw Bridgman cover to cover. Like schools, teachers leverage grades without being thrown out of school. And he has one more question. I'll get to that second question. But here's the first thing, what you just said about something to threaten or force yourself. Artists who there's plenty of people who go to art school and do what they need to get the A. Most of those people don't become very good artists. The people that become good artists are the people who look at the homework assignment, do the assignment, and then go on and draw for another 3 or 4 or 5 hours beyond the assignment, or doing explorations and doing variations of the assignment, exploring and trying different things. Feeling like you have to threaten yourself to get work done, let me put it this way. I went to a 4-year fine art college, and I graduated. I got a degree. I started working in graphic design afterwards, and I was doing some illustration work, but I never got a job full time. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s, early 30s, when I had the true realization that I'd been drawing since I was a little kid. I had gone to an art college and graduated with a degree, and was now out in the world. And I really didn't know how to draw. I think I was about like 28 or 29 when I realized, holy crap, I'm calling myself a professional artist and I don't know how to draw. And it was when I decided that I wanted it. That's when I started going to figure drawing classes regularly and committed to it. And that's when I started growing. So it's less about a threat. It's not about threat. No threat in the world is going to make you become a good artist, because making art and being a professional artist is one of the hardest things in the world, and it has the rewards can be financial, but primarily they're spiritual, in the sense of being able to do something with your life and to spend most of your days doing something that is emotionally and spiritually satisfying. Threats aren't going to do that. You have to just want to do it. So if right now you feel like what they're doing in SVS Learn is inspiring, just having fun and making artwork and doing it with less judgment, follow that path. Because the path of what makes you passionate about art is what's going to make you spend time making art. And maybe now isn't the time to work on the mannequins, even though I think that that's what's going to get you to doing the Frazetta type work sooner. But if that's not what excites you, you may have to spend a few years playing with ink and doing work that's more just expression and energy and having fun. You may need to do that for 5 years or 10 years before you come back and say, oh, now I see why I need to work more on my mannequins. And coming at it from you wanting it, not from someone telling you you have to. Because I can tell you you have to do it all day long, so I'm blue in the face. It's not going to help you. You have to just simply want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, then go make art that you really enjoy. Go do the things that you find fun and inspiring, because making art is hard, so you damn sure better enjoy doing the thing that you're doing. So yeah, you don't need to like the whole thing working on the fundamentals. You don't need to take my advice. So you shouldn't need anyone's permission, but I'm giving you permission to ignore me and just go make what you want to make. So we're going to wrap it up here. The last question you said, Jeremy, what is the process to get to the level of the primal artist? The primal artist, he means Genndy Tartakovsky, creator of the current Adult Swim cartoon Primal. He was also the creator of Star Wars Clone Wars. And I think he also did Star Wars Rebels as well, even though that was CG as opposed to a 2D show. He worked on the Powerpuff. He was co-creator of the Powerpuff Girls. And I feel like there's another cartoon series after Powerpuff Girls, but before the Star Wars stuff. Point is he's worked in animation for decades. You want to get to that level? Start interning at animation studios. In fact, you know what you should do? I'll tell you this. Google animation studios, New York. Find all of the animation studios that are within driving distance to you. Call all of their HR departments and ask them if they have an internship program. You may not have time to take an internship right now, but just call and ask. Find out if they have an internship program. Then ask them, what do you need in your portfolio? Maybe by reaching out to them, you can find out like how to get your foot in the door. Because if you want to be able to do what his work, the way you do that is by doing thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of animation. That's how you get to that level, is by just doing the work, making the thing. Byron, Samurai Jack. That was the show I was forgetting. Samurai Jack. Thank you, Byron. I totally forgot that. By the way, Byron also had a great inspirational quote out there. He just said, in the end, we can only be taken as far as our passions and drive can take us. That very, very true. You have to, that's the thing I say about really wanting it is, the passions are what will make you do the fundamental work. Like when I do the fundamental work now and I do the art book study group now, it isn't just, I want to give back to other artists, or I want to have something for the patrons to watch to make it worth their while. I'm doing that because I want to improve my fundamentals. And for me, the path is studying the art books of Walt Reed and Andrew Loomis and Bridgman. I'm doing it because I get a lot out of it. It's the same thing as this. I want to put together a collected edition of my comic book that I've been working on for years. So I'm just sharing with you guys the thing that I would be doing anyway. If there was no audience, if no one was watching me and there was no recording and no live streaming, I'd be doing this anyway. I'm sharing it here with you guys, but this is what I want to be making. So go do the thing that you want to do. But if you want to get like Genndy Tartakovsky, find animation studios in New York. Reach out to their HR departments. Find out what the portfolio requirements are. If you can possibly find the art directors or animation directors or storyboard artists on those shows and reach out to them on Twitter and just say, hey, I'm looking to break in. What should I have in my portfolio? What kind of samples do you want to see? They may give you tips. You may end up saying, all right, let's say that you're not in a university, you're not in a school. Usually with internships, they want someone to be in a school. You might save up a bunch of money and apply to whatever school is the least expensive for you to get into. Be in that school for one semester and enroll in courses just so you can sign up as an intern. Take the internship, get in there, learn as much as you want, ignore the class's help, flunk out of school. You're only signing up for school so you can get into the internships. You can actually get hands-on work at an animation studio. That's a strategy that I think is real. If you don't want to spend a lot of time and money learning crap that you don't really care about, find a cheap school, a junior college or community college, sign up, get on there, enroll in courses just so you can get an internship at a place that only takes college students. And then get an internship, because that's where I've learned most. Where I've learned the most about art is actually working in art. I went to an art college, and that art college, I went to UCLA for fine art, but being in that school put me in the position to get my first art job. Because my first actual art job I found it because there was a studio that was looking for inexpensive artists. They were looking for art students, and they came into my my drawing and painting teacher. I think it was my junior year or my senior year, and they were looking for students. And he knew that me having a comic book style and being interested in comics and animation, I was one of the few illustrators in a fine art program. So he threw me their way. They liked my portfolio. I ended up working there for a couple of years, and I'm still connected with the founder of that company. He's gone and moved on to do other work. I'm still connected with them on LinkedIn. I would run into him at comic conventions every few years. Shout out to Michael Pache. Great guy, super supportive. Gave me my first gig in art. Gave me a lot of graphic design work. Gave me a lot of graphic design knowledge. I learned so much from all of the people that I worked with at that company. Internships are the best way to learn and get your foot in the door. All right, we're really running this long here. Let's wrap it up. Again, Byron, thanks for mentioning Samurai Jack. Nico Frazetta, if you have not watched Samurai Jack, along with Primal, I would say Samurai Jack. And I can't believe that that's the one I couldn't remember, because Samurai Jack was one of my favorites. It feels very similar to Frank Miller's Ronin, both in tone and in visual storytelling. It's beautiful, amazing, fun series. Like, it's one of those shows that really blends treating anime. It has comedy, but it still treats animation and the story seriously. It's a great thing to check out. All right, last couple of things here. Amar says, I'm planning it now, and we'll have we'll have all of current projects done, and we'll have a series on a streaming service. Do it. Do it. Shout out to Amar. Monsoon, go. Do it. Artist of No Style. Do it. Go get it. He said a successful game and comic book series before we hit 2030. I'd like it to be 2025. I'm feeling you, man. Go for it. All right. So on that note, I stopped at a certain point. I didn't get that much more work done on that cover, but I feel like I made some good progress. On that note, again, for anyone who wants to hear all this art book study group that we keep talking about, you want to sit down, join in on a session of us studying from Walt Reed's The Figure, and watch all of the old previous ones are archived on Patreon, so you can go through and watch all of the old art book study groups. You can see us working through George Bridgman, Ken Holtgren, The Art of Animal Drawing, all these great art books that I just sit down and study from and analyze, try to improve my own artistic skills. So, it's Art Book Study Group. You guys can join that, patreon.com/GERIMI. You can also read all of my comics for free on there. My newsletter, newsletter.jeremy.net, GERIMI.net. You get a free digital sketchbook. It's the sketch edition of the first 3 issues of Morning Star. You can check that out there. I also send out once a month. I send you an email. It's got a collection of work in progress animated GIFs, little blog posts, any new artwork they have for sale or new products. All of that delivers straight to your inbox. And if you would like to get physical copies of Eye of the Gods, psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he can't control, or Volume 1 of Morning Star, Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. I'm working my way towards getting Volume 2 assembled, as you can see from me working on the cover. You can get those physically, or if you read digitally on Amazon or on Kindle or Comixology. You can go over there and order copies. It's great for people that live outside of the United States and don't want to necessarily pay those heavy shipping fees for physical books. You can read digitally that way. So yeah, guys, again, this was a great session. We had a great conversation. Thank you everyone for showing up. Byron says thanks for the stream. Byron, no, thank you for showing up, for being interested in hanging out, for joining in this great conversation and following me along in my creative process. All right, everybody, Go have a great week. Go find something that you're passionate about. Don't let people tell you what you do or don't have to do. Ask for all of the advice and take only what fits you. That's it for now. Go be creative.